Some of them were stark juxtapositions. Some of them were similar tracks. If you go down a track of how something is in your life, you're going to know that it's rotten, and that will be your truth. I can decide whether it's going to be good or bad. It's all up to me. Once you realize you have a choice, you do.
The Eat Sleep Right podcast is brought to you
by a generous grant from the Built on Dreams Media Network,
with additional funding by a grant from the Sims Media Network,
and from listeners like you.
Stand by, please. Rolling on 6 now. On 6.
Welcome to episode 27. If you've enjoyed the Eat Sleep Right podcast or enjoyed your own success story with writing, I'd like to hear from you as well. Tell me a little about yourself and your story, and I will get back to you about joining me for a podcast on your writing adventures. I would so appreciate your taking just a few minutes of your time, leaving me a testimonial about how you enjoyed the podcast and what you may have learned from them. Please share your enthusiasm for the Eat Sleep Right podcast. I'm actually using the comments for a few different purposes. One, to share with potential authors to get more podcast interviews, and I share the testimonials on the site as well. Thank you so much in advance if you leave me a little message. I truly appreciate it. Write to me at comments@eatsleepright.net. Editor and contributor to the book 27 Flavors of Fulfillment and featured columnist in Om Times and Women's Voices magazines, Cristina Smith is a longtime spiritual student and Panacea Life School Core Master Teacher, founder and president of the San Diego Holistic Chamber of Commerce. Cristina Smith serves as the Muse of Healing. She is a practitioner and teacher of biovibrational healing and noted medical intuitive. Her writings, sessions, and programs skillfully weave proven techniques and profound wisdom into ways to make your life better. She was voted favorite medical intuitive on About.com in 2013. Cristina Smith, I'm delighted to have you on the Eat Sleep Right podcast.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to be here.
What made you want to be a writer?
I wanted to be a writer right after I wanted to be an archaeologist, so it was number 2 in my way of deciding who I wanted to be in the world. I wanted to be a writer because I loved reading. First and foremost, as a reader, I could travel almost anywhere in the arms and wings of a book. I had thoughts and ideas that came to me that I thought would be excellent to write. So I took my reading skills and applied them to my writing skills to begin to express myself. I see writing as one of the most creative art forms there is.
It's interesting what you just said. You took a very heartfelt expression of mine. Reading is the next best thing to traveling.
Well, traveling on the inside is working with your imagination, and we really access that a lot through reading. We can also access it through nature and other things, but reading is really a magic carpet ride right into your world of the imagination. World traveling is more on the outside, and that can stimulate the inside, and they can work together.
Where did you get the inspiration to write your chapter for this book?
I got my inspiration for this chapter in 27 Flavors of Fulfillment from the perennial truths in all spiritual beliefs around the world. My chapter is called Love Your Neighbor as Yourself. So I figured everyone around the world thinks this is really true, and I've had personal experiences with the richness and depth of that truth myself. Then this was something that I really wanted to convey to other people as to how to steer yourself toward more happiness and fulfillment in your life.
I'm curious how to live life to the fullest. Can you elaborate a little bit on the idea behind that in one's perhaps everyday approach? Because not everybody, as you know, is going to think on that plane that you think on. So it's kind of like, how do you take that higher plane of your thinking and write for people to understand it without scratching their heads and saying, I don't quite get what she's referring to or talking about?
What an excellent question, Adam. I believe that all these lofty principles, like the one I just talked about, really have daily applications. If you'd like, I'll read you one of the daily applications as part of my reading from the book.
Please do.
In my 2,000-word-long chapter, there are 5 ways to love your neighbor as yourself. This one's called Have Compassion for Yourself and Others. Sounds lofty, right? Listen to how we apply it to daily life. Your life is as it is right now. No more, no less. You have the choice as to how you feel about it. If you think it sucks, it does. Maybe it isn't what you want by a long shot, but there is no benefit in pouring negativity into yourself and your life. In fact, these toxic emotions often make you sick. You can change how you feel about your life condition and decide to get as much out of it as you can. You can take the risk of looking at your current situation as a challenge or opportunity rather than a torture and punishment. What you can gain when you take that risk is living a life of expanded consciousness and awareness. As a result, you may feel compassion for yourself and shift your inner dialogue and emotions to support you in any circumstance rather than suffer through it. To take this principle to a higher level, seek to see the life of another through those same compassionate eyes. Love your neighbor as yourself, even when he annoys you. By having the courage and strength to shift your mind and emotions to that perspective, you may be surprised to find the entire situation can change for the better. Applying that to daily life is tricky because you really have to become conscious of how you think about yourself, first and foremost. If you go down a track of how something is in your life, you're going to know that it's rotten and that will be your truth. You just step in dog poop and you think it's a rotten day. Or you can say, I just stepped in dog poop. Wow, I'm not paying very close attention. This is a good sign to pay closer attention to where I'm stepping.
In other words, act as if.
Act as if or be as if. Yes. If you can catch the thought and say, wait a second, who says? Do I want to make a different choice or not? Because once you realize you have a choice, you do.
What do you say to the person who's reading the chapter that you wrote in the book, who's in deep depression and doesn't see any way out of their current predicament?
That's a really great question. Depression has a lot of different levels. I've gone through it myself. What brought me out of it was to do something different with my life, to find something that I could do that forced a change. What I chose to do was to volunteer someplace, to make myself get up and take a step into something different. Once you're in the habit, whatever the habit is, of depression or feeling sick all the time or chronic pain, hyper stress at work, take your pick of whatever condition it could be. It's a habit. It's like the train on the track. It's going at whatever speed it's going. If you can interrupt it, like putting how the signals come down for a train that stop it, you can kind of divert it a little bit. Even if all you do is get up and open the door and walk outside for 2 minutes every day, you've made a positive change in your life and have begun to replace depression, stress, whatever else it is, with something positive that you choose to replace it with. And you build on small successes.
27 Flavors of Fulfillment leads one to 27 chapters. You wrote but one. Yet, you are the editor of the entire book. You had a direct hand in the continuity of all 27 chapters. What was that experience like?
It was quite dynamic. In some ways, it felt superhuman because my 2-week deadline shrunk to 3 days. In other ways, it was a great piece of intuitional magic because some of the chapters were obvious and which went together. They melded so well, and others were kind of stark juxtapositions which I knew would capture the attention of the reader. I read everything fairly thoroughly the first time, was contacting authors so that they could make their corrections, and putting together the continuity. What was fascinating about reading all these different perspectives on the same questions, it's kind of like a gem where I'm looking at a bunch of different facets of the same gem. There were some I liked and some I didn't resonate with so much and some that I knew certain people would like, but they all started to have a different character. almost began to take on a life of their own. As I was reading them, it became obvious as to who went together with who. Some of them were stark juxtapositions. Some of them were similar tracks.
What sets your book apart from others of the same genre?
Looking at all the different facets of the jewel as it turns, rather than just seeing one facet in the light, because there are so many different perspectives on the same topic.
Was it a difficult write, or did the words just flow out of you?
Because I've been writing so long and working so much on knowing how to open the faucet, all I did was turn on my faucet. I can turn on my creative flow at will. To me, the key is finding the right starting point. It's where do you launch from to take people, as you say, to where you want them to go. In writing a 2,000-word chapter, certainly you don't have time to develop very far. However, through using precise, essential language, you can speak volumes in few words. So to me, word choice, use of metaphor to create feeling were essential.
If the live life to the fullest phone rang in your place, what would you say?
It would be, know yourself as well as you can, because you're the greatest love of your life. Discover your bliss, as Joseph Campbell would say, and follow it to the best of your ability.
Tell me more about the rest of the chapters that surround yours and the overall message that the book is delivering.
The overall message that the book is delivering is there are many paths up to the top of the mountain of happiness and joy. It's our birthright. It's up to us to fulfill it. And wherever you are in your life, you can take a step there. A step is all it takes. It's one moment at a time.
What's the nicest thing anyone ever said about your book?
That it really helped them a lot. There were so many amazing suggestions in it that they really feel it's a manual for life.
Where can listeners purchase the book?
We're on Amazon.com.
What do you like best about being a writer? What do you like least?
It combines both my inner worlds and my outer worlds. I go inside and work in my imagination and read, learn things, really creative and imaginative, and then I'm able to express them on the outside. When people read them and like them, then I feel very fulfilled in yet another aspect of my life in helping other people. It really is fulfilling on a variety of levels for me. What I like least about writing is people undervaluing it.
What do you like least about writing?
Many people feeling like writing's not very valuable because a lot of writing can be purchased for very inexpensively. What I've come to make peace with my personal writing career is that either I am getting the price that I want or I am offering it for free. I've tried being inexpensive and it's always backfired on me.
How has your life prepared you for writing a chapter in 27 Flavors of Fulfillment?
That's actually a great question because I know the answer to that. My life has prepared me because I've been driven my whole life to be fulfilled. My whole life has prepared me for writing this book because it's been my mission to live my life as my art, to be creative in how I unfold my life, to discover as much as I can about myself, determine what I want to do, and then find a way to do it. I wanted to be able to live at that level without having to take any catalyzers, to have that be my baseline. And through continual, consistent self-exploration and self-knowledge, I'm just delighted to say that I've been able to hold that space of living my life to its fullest every single day. And each new day is more fulfilling than the next.
Cristina Smith, contributing a chapter, editing, working on the continuity of 27 Flavors of Fulfillment. Thank you so much for being with me today on the Eat, Sleep, Write podcast. I know my listeners will enjoy your work and your interview.
Thank you, Adam. It was a delight to speak with you.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Eat, Sleep, Write podcast, located on the internet at eatsleepwrite.net.
Please send an email with any questions or comments to info@eatsleepwrite.net. Once again, the email address is info@eatsleepwrite.net.
Please consider a donation to show your support for the Eat Sleep Right podcast.
Checks and PayPal are